All right, Roto Grinders, apologize for that little hiccup. I'm sure you all aware, I'm not the best when it comes to technology. That's why we have our wonderful producers here. But they get the weekends off, and for whatever reason, I was having some trouble. But EMAC came in, saved the day with some help from my co-host Justin. You know him better as STL Cardinals 84. And we'll skip the nonsense and just let's get right into it. Now that we're about 15 minutes late, let's go ahead talk about starting pitcher again. I know there's not a whole lot to love, but who do we like tonight?
Yeah, Emacs saved a technology issue. The irony in that is amazing and wonderful at the same time. So Emac, you can gloat about the technology has won you today. So into starting pitching, which I talked about before when y'all couldn't hear me. We'll talk about it again. It's not glamorous tonight. I really wouldn't choose anyone if I had the choice, but you got to take somebody. Everyone's got a little wart here or there this evening. With the two guys at the top, Greinke's been pushed back a couple days, hasn't been that great since the All-Star break. That worries me a bit. Lester against a tough offense in the Angels that hits left-handed pitching pretty well. That worries me with him. And then you're down into a bunch of mid-tier guys. Irvin Santana struggles against left-handed batters, so that's a worry, even though the Cincinnati offense has been scuffling. Danny Salazar, I think, gives you the most upside of the night, actually, against Houston. He's capable of racking up 90 or 100 pitches in 4 or 5 innings if he doesn't have his command, or he's capable of having a dominant performance. That's the risk-reward you get with Danny Salazar. I think it makes him a great option for GPPs. So, at 7,200, he can really save you some salary, help you get some of those Coors Field bats in there, but, it's a big risk. He could put up a negative fantasy point performance for you on DraftKings, or he could get you 25 to 30. You just never know what you're going to get from him. So I think Greinke's going to be the highest owned guy of the night simply because people will see his name, they'll see a home matchup with the Mets, and they'll plug him in. If you choose to play the fade on that, given his recent struggles, I think that's, that decision has merit behind it. But for cash games, I certainly think he'll be one of the most popular picked guys tonight. I don't know. It's just tough to pick a guy. You've got Cashner with a good matchup, but coming off injury. Peralta doesn't strike a lot of guys out. There's just nobody that screams "take me" tonight, so I don't really know where to go with it.
Yeah, I agree with you. If you mentioned or if you happen to read my article today, I pointed out that there's some nice you would assume that there's some nice matchups for some of these guys, but there's some potential landmines out there. Like you said, you getting DeGrom, Cashner, both coming off the DL, and then you've got Verlander and Greinke both dealing with injuries. Lester with a tough matchup against the Angels on the road. Like you mentioned, they can crush left-handed pitching. And not a whole lot else to love or be able to necessarily trust outside of that. I'm going to go ahead on an efficiency site. That's what DraftKings is. And I'm actually going to kind of go against the grain of what I mentioned on my article that was, kind of geared towards FanDuel. I think that Greinke is going to be the top option of the night for me on DraftKings. I don't expect him to go deep into that game, but I do, his numbers don't lie, and while he has been kind of up and down, it's because he's been dealing with some elbow soreness, and it's always a red flag. But either way, against this Mets team at home in Dodger Stadium, I like the matchup, and I think that Greinke will at least be able to go out and throw an efficient game and rack up some points on DraftKings. As far as Lester's concerned, I think he's going to do good. I think he's going to have a good game, and he's going to go deep into that game, and I think that Oakland will win it again tonight. But I think it's going to be tough for him. The Angels, like we said, they come in, they're the number one team versus lefties on the road. I think that Lester's going to give up a couple hits here and there and a couple runs, and I don't really necessarily think that paying up for him with his steep price tag over on DraftKings tonight is going to be the best strategy, believe it or not. After Greinke, I don't like the matchup with Irvin Santana in Cincinnati. I love the matchup against Cincinnati, but in that ballpark, he's a fly ball pitcher. He could easily blow up. I think to be honest with you, I'm kind of going against the grain of what I said in my article, but DraftKings, completely different site. I think Colin McHugh might be my number 2 option tonight. This guy has brilliant numbers on the road, and the only red flag that I've got from him is his matchup against Cleveland. But it is a spacious ballpark. Some of those home runs, he's a fly ball pitcher. You might give up a home run or two, but if you saw the way Cleveland swung the bats last night, they looked horrendous up there, and that was against Brad Peacock. So you get a lot of K upside from McHugh, factored in with the fact that Cleveland's just not swinging the bats well right now. I think that McHugh, at his price, is probably going to be my number 2 option after Greinke. And again, I just want to clarify. FanDuel and DraftKings, as far as pitching is concerned, they're 2 different beasts. They're a whole another animal. On an efficiency site, you need strikeouts. You don't necessarily need the win. I think the win won't be hard to come by for McHugh, but you look at those numbers. He's just limiting walks and he's striking guys out. That's the top 2 efficient pitchers on the board for me are where I'm going to go on DraftKings tonight. What are your thoughts on DeGrom coming off injury against the Dodgers? Obviously, tough spot to get a win. Is he in play for you at all?
I don't know. It's just so hard to take guys their first game back. If he wasn't limited in any capacity, I wouldn't be scared to take him against the Dodgers. I just don't think that at 9,100, I don't think the price tag is low enough to entice me to take that chance. To be honest, I'd kind of be with you there. I'd rather have McHugh at that price level, simply because I think he's a little bit safer despite the matchup with Cleveland. It's just too. I mean, if DeGrom was like priced where Salazar is, I think that would make me want to take him. I just think he's still a little bit too pricey.
Okay, yeah, and I can certainly see that. I'm sure he'll be on some kind of pitch count, especially since he's been dealing with a shoulder injury, and then you factor in that the Mets aren't really playing for anything these days. They're not going to go out and stretch out their young starter coming off the DL. They're already kind of looking towards next year. Really quickly, I didn't bring up Salazar. The only reason I'm a little afraid of him on our sponsor DraftKings is when he gets in trouble, he gives up tons of hits, and if he doesn't have his command, he walks guys in bunches. I do love the strikeout potential, but I'm a little bit more confident in McHugh to go out and throw a more efficient game, whereas Salazar, he's going to give up hits, he's going to walk guys. That's why I like Salazar a little bit more over on FanDuel. And if he's able to get that win, that's why I like him, especially in your GPPs. I don't have a problem with him because he has been much better since getting called back up. And, Houston, they are who they are. They're very inconsistent. But, again, I'm going to lean McHugh over Salazar on DraftKings and kind of hedge him against Salazar over on FanDuel. So take it for what you will. I just, efficiency is the king over on DraftKings. Walks and hits, those are negative points. And if for whatever reason he's not striking guys out, it could be a long night for Salazar as well. What are your thoughts on Mike Leake tonight?
Never a guy that I really find myself taking. I finally got on him a couple starts ago against the Red Sox, and he wasn't very good. I don't know. I can never peg him right. So he doesn't strike out a ton of guys. Just seems like he has limited upside. And the Braves right now, I mean, they've been scorching hot at the plate this week. They won last night. Got a big home run from Upton in extra innings. They've had, I think, 3 games this week where they've scored 9 or more runs. So I'm not messing with pitchers against the Braves right now. I know they strike out a ton, but I'm just not feeling Leake tonight.
Okay, yeah, I'm kind of feeling the same way. It's more of a ballpark thing, and you got, a very inconsistent offense, but an offense that has been able to hit Leake very well in the past. You factor in that ballpark again. It's just not a place that I really like to target starting pitchers. Someone in chat brought up Vidal Nuno. Any thoughts on him tonight?
Well, I think he could be a decent number 2 play for a GPP. When he's bad, he's really bad. So, I mean, I could see him pitching a good game, or I could see a San Diego stack paying off, especially in Arizona. It's a nice hitter's park. San Diego tends to score zero or a whole bunch, so it's a risk-reward play for sure, because when Nuno's bad, he stinks. So, it's kind of similar to Salazar without as much upside, but at 6,200, you can't argue with the price tag. I mean, I'd certainly take him before I took either one of those pitchers in Coors Field, no doubt. But he's right there as another one of the low-end risk-reward plays tonight, and it might not be a bad idea tonight. I mean, there's not a glowing option that you're foregoing to put Nuno in there. So, I mean, if he fits, give it a shot.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you. The price is intriguing, and you're certainly going to be loading up your bats. You might see a lot of Vidal Nuno, especially with people likely targeting this game in Coors Field, but it's not the easiest matchup in the world. I know that the Padres, over the course of the season, are the worst offense in baseball, but they've been turning things around. Guys like Rene Rivera and the rookie they called up, Reimer Liriano. These guys can hit lefties, and they've got some power. And in addition, you've got Tommy Medica there, and some of those guys at the top of the order kind of swing their bats well. So I'm not going to go that route tonight, but I do agree with you that Josh Comenter shut this team down yesterday, and I don't think anyone saw that coming. Tough ballpark, not a whole lot of strikeout upside, and if he's bad, he's bad. But yeah, I mean, at that price, I think that he could go out and throw a decent game. But again, I'm not going that route tonight. Any other pitchers you want to mention here?
No, I think that's about it. Pile of the scrap heap tonight.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's go ahead and move on to catcher. Who are we liking at backstop tonight?
You're limited in your options. Lots of guys getting nights off tonight. So Sal Perez not in the lineup for the Royals, still battling some soreness there. Devin Mesoraco getting a night off for Cincinnati. William Rosario getting a night off for Colorado. So three of the generally higher-owned options you can toss out the window tonight. Makes catcher kind of a non-glamorous position. You pretty much get the same analysis with the A's that you got last night. So Derek Norris is in there in the middle of the order tonight against C.J. Wilson, who's had a predominantly poor season. So I don't mind Derek Norris at his mid-range price tag if you want to play somebody from that tier, or you're kind of looking for a sub around the same price range as a guy like Mesoraco or a guy like Rosario. He's just a little bit cheaper than those guys, so that should fit into your lineup nicely if you're looking to do that. If you're not buying into Danny Salazar, I think Jason Castro is a nice boom or bust GPP play tonight. Never a guy that hits for a high average, but certainly has some power. Other than that, I mean, I kind of like the guys at the top of the board. Lucroy's price is up a bit, so that cools me on him. But you get, you get a safety net when you take him, because he's one of the highest batting average guys of any catcher in the league. Edinson Volquez can certainly get hit around at times, so I think Lucroy, if you have the salary to spend at catcher, is a perfectly fine option tonight. I think you'll see a lot of people go with Norris, though, given the matchup against C.J. Wilson. That's really where I'm heading tonight. If you're not on Nuno, the guy we just talked about, you mentioned Rene Rivera. I believe he's hitting cleanup tonight, and he's 2,400, or he's fourth or fifth or somewhere in there.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I think that Lucroy has been able to hit right-handed pitching all season long, in addition to lefties. That's notably one of the reasons why he's leading the MVP voting, or up there along with Giancarlo Stanton. But I'm more inclined to go down. I think at the top of my list, it's going to be Derek Norris. Just a great price pretty much across the industry. Bat and cleanup, can hit lefties. C.J. Wilson, prone to the long ball. I think he's going to struggle with this Oakland team, especially for how patient they are. And then, that Angels bullpen, while they've, turned things around incredibly well since only, pretty much acquiring two guys, that bullpen's taxed. They had a long series out there in Boston, and I just think that everything's kind of, the writing's on the wall for Oakland to win this game, tie up the division, and then we'll see how the rest of that series plays out. But Norris is going to be my top option. Going down from there, I'm with you on Rene Rivera. Like I said, this is a guy that hits lefties, left-handed pitching very well. In a hitter's ballpark against a hittable lefty, bat and cleanup, I do like him, especially at his price. In addition to him, if you're looking for some more value, you got Brian Pena and Eric Kratz in there. These are kind of your boomer bust guys, but both in ideal hitting environments, going up against pitchers that, Irvin Santana struggles versus lefties, and he's a fly ball pitcher. And on the flip side, you got Nick Tepesh, who's got extreme reverse splits, struggles versus right-handed batters. I think both of those guys have some home run upside as well. I do like, with all the pitching, that's, if you want to pay up for pitching, I think that going down to some of these middle tier price guys with high upside, all bat and cleanup is the way to go tonight. So that's what I'm thinking. Do we miss anyone else here?
No, I think that's about it at catcher. Really, at least we've got some options kind of at the top, and then in the middle, and then you've got a punt there that's in a decent spot if you want to go there tonight.
Absolutely. All right, let's go ahead and move on to first base.
A position I think you could definitely spend on tonight if you're saving at pitcher. I think there's a lot of solid options. If you look at the stats of Trevor May since he's been called up, has not been very good. I expect the Tigers hopefully to kick it in gear in this game. They've embarrassingly allowed the Twins to score 30 runs over the last two games, 20 last night and 10 in the first game of the doubleheader this morning. So certainly they need Miguel Cabrera, Victor Martinez to pick up the slack before they fall too far behind the Royals in that AL Central. So I think those two guys are certainly viable options tonight, along with Freddie Freeman against Mike Leake, who does not strike a lot of batters out. I think Freeman's in a solid spot tonight as well. Those are kind of the three guys I would look at if I'm going to spend, along with Justin Morneau, obviously, in that game at Coors. He's one of the most reasonably priced Colorado bats on DraftKings, given their pricing. Matt Adams, I mentioned him last night. He was 11 for his last 27. Kept that going with a home run last night. Still a pretty nice price tag on him if you want to go that route. And again, you've got some cheaper options if you want to go that route with Nate Fryman against a left-hander, and then Tommy Medica, who's been hot since the All-Star break against Nuno. He's only $2,700. So a lot of ways you can go at first. I think on most of my teams I'll be paying up for one of those two Detroit players or Justin Morneau, but certainly can't fault you if you want to go for a cheaper option too.
All right, yeah. First base, not actually a position that I'm really in love with tonight. Obviously last night there was, it seemed like everyone was in play, but tonight I'm going with what I know I'm going to get. And Freddie Freeman, you're going to get some quality at bats. He's got home run upside always, but especially more so now in a hitter's park. Especially a park that favors left-handed batters. I'm liking Freddie Freeman as my top option. I liked him over on FanDuel. I think the price isn't prohibitive, and he's been swinging an incredibly hot bat. And in addition, the Braves themselves have been hitting better, which helps him as he's for more RBI opportunities instead of those solo shots that we've kind of grown accustomed to. So I do like Freddie Freeman. Going down from there. You do have Victor Martinez. Got to mention him. He's a solid option, especially in your cash games. But on a site where you're looking for that home run upside, tough park to hit home runs out there in Minnesota. I know he's going against a rookie, but especially for left-handed batters, I think some of the Detroit players I'm going to be targeting are going to be those right-handed ones. So I think he's a solid cash game option, but the upside really isn't there for me tonight. Going down, I think that Ryan Howard is kind of a sneaky option. Again, I like him over on FanDuel, Not to kind of carry over these picks, but they're both in around the same price range. They come in with some nice value, high upside, and good matchups in hitters' parks against pitchers that struggle versus you know their way they swing the bat. Shelby Miller, we know, his struggles versus left-handed pitching. Still kind of thumping along here. Hasn't really, obviously not the same guy we saw witness last year, but I think Ryan Howard either way is in a decent spot. And then you've got a couple value guys. Nate Fryman, 3,200, had that 2 home run game last Sunday, I believe. Again, C.J. Wilson. If for whatever reason CJ is able to go deeper into that game, that kind of boosts Fryman value for me because he does have some power, can hit right-handed pitching, but on the flip side, say a part of an Oakland stack, I would be cautious with Fryman because the Angels they've only got one lefty in that bullpen, and he's going to be out of that game at the first sight of a right-handed pitcher. So keep that in mind. Going down, you got Tommy Medica, kind of similar to Rene Rivera. A guy with power, upside, not necessarily a guy you can rely on, but in that ballpark, if Vidal Nuno has one of his blow-up games, you can bet your ass that Tommy Medica is going to be involved with it one way or another. And then all the way at the bottom, if you need an absolute punt, you got Lyle Overbay, batting 7th, I believe, tonight. Gets the pitcher that's very hittable, and it's in Volquez. And, Overbay has hit him well over the course of his career, so I think that's an interesting, punt option at first base if that's the route you decide to go, especially if you're loading up on pitching because in that ballpark, it's Coors Field light, believe it or not. It's easy to hit home runs for left-handed batters, so don't sleep on that play. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got at first base. Any reaction or anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I don't mind Howard as well. Shelby Miller has just been bad this year, so that's a nice way to go. Somebody in the chat asked about Garrett Jones. I don't know what the Marlins have going on tonight. They haven't released their lineup yet, so it makes me think somebody might be banged up. Just be careful. If you're going to roster anybody from the Marlins, make sure you check that lineup when it comes out. To be totally honest, I am not going to target a ton of Marlins bats tonight. Jordan Lyles, although he pitches in Coors Field, he is somewhat of a ground ball pitcher, and he's been relatively decent this year, which is more than you can say for most of the Rockies' other starters. So, do I think the Marlins are in a decent spot? Yes. I don't think they're going to score 13 runs again. But that being said, on sites where they're still a little bit cheaper, and Jones would be one of the cheaper options, yes, I think he's in play. But I prefer some of the other guys tonight.
Yeah, I agree with you. Especially, DraftKings, they've got a little bit tighter pricing, flex pricing. They're going to bump guys up where you normally see them down, near the bottom. Garrett Jones, not necessarily, a guy that I get excited about. I don't think anyone gets excited about. I'll say I like him a lot over on FanDuel, where I believe he's only 23 or 24, maybe 2,500. I just don't see it paying up 4,400 for a guy who could get pinch hit for. Just not a guy you can trust. Has power, flashes it at times. If he's ever an opportunity for him to, really kind of have a monster game, it would be in Coors Field against Jordan Lyles. But again, just not a route I'm going. Not at his price on our sponsor DraftKings. All right. Anyone else, or should we move on to second base?
Yeah, let's move to second. Position that's kind of hard for me to fill tonight. I think there's 3 or 4 guys that you say, okay, he's a decent option, a decent price, but really not one that stands out, at the front of the pack for me, because you've got guys like Matt Carpenter. While I think he has a decent matchup, not a ton of power there. Chase Utley, same thing. He's got a nice matchup against Shelby Miller, but hasn't shown a ton of power this year. And these guys are, at the top of the pricing scale with some of the other elite second basemen already having played this afternoon. D. Gordon, he hasn't been great lately, and DeGrom has been more than serviceable when he's been in there for the Mets. So I don't know. I mean, I think all those guys are in play, but I can't, make heads or tails out of putting one in front of the other in terms of ranking them, ranking the top guys. It's a position where I think you can kind of fill in, based on what price range you have left. Not a lot of upside with Omar Infante, but a good matchup with Nick Tepesh. Jason Kipnis's price has come down about $600 or $700 on DraftKings. So if tonight's the night you want to roll with him, I certainly wouldn't have a problem with that. If you're not on Colin McHugh, and a guy that I've never been a total fan of, but I've found myself taking him a little bit more lately, given his price decrease, is Neil Walker. What are your thoughts on him against Peralta, a guy who gives up a lot of home runs and doesn't strike a lot of batters out? Perhaps it's a night where Neil Walker gets things going for a struggling Pirates team.
I do like Neil Walker, especially at his price over on DraftKings. But Peralta has been good, but his struggles versus left-handed batters are well documented. Neil Walker, especially in that ballpark, I think there's tremendous upside. But for me, just $100 more, actually the same price on our sponsor, DraftKings. It's going to be Scooter Week for me. I love his price over there. I love it more over on DraftKings than I do over on FanDuel.
Yeah, he's batting fifth too.
But yeah, and he's batting fifth. A guy, if you read my article, I stated he's got like a 345 average at home versus right-handed pitching. Excellent WOBA, excellent OPS. There is some upside there from him. I do like Scooter Gennett, but in addition, I don't hate Neil Walker tonight. Especially now that my kind of GPP guy, Jed Jerko, is out of the lineup. But either way, I think that we're pretty much in agreement that I don't think it's a night where you have to spend up at second base. I think you kind of go down similar to catcher with some of these middle tier guys. I know Buchanan has some extreme reverse splits for a right-handed pitcher, but still not a large sample size. He could get banged around by St. Louis. In addition to Gennett and Walker, I do like Colton Wong's price. And two more guys I want to bring up. Emilio Bonifacio leading off for the Braves. I believe he's leading off, if I'm not mistaken. I like his price, especially in that ballpark against Mike Leake. And then probably my top punt option, it's going to be, believe it or not, Rougned Odor tonight. We all know Jeremy Guthrie struggles big time versus left-handed batters. In that ballpark, I know he's batting ninth, but he's only 2,900. This is a guy that, profiles, they have that 2 to 7 scale as far as scouting is concerned. He came in as a 7 hitter, and he's only 20 years old, kind of holding his own at this point in his career. Can have some of those big games, does have the power. He's a good hitter. I think that despite the fact that he's batting ninth for 2,900, he's a guy that'll be sneaky play in your GPPs. I don't think a whole lot of people are going to be on tonight. So you got any thoughts on Odor?
Yeah, I'm actually, for my GPPs on DraftKings tonight, I'm actually stacking Texas. I think it's super contrarian. Guthrie, while he struggles a ton against left-handed bats, so Texas has, I believe, 4 of them in the lineup tonight. They're not glamorous, but that park, you can hit home runs in that park. Guthrie can give up home runs in bunches, and I can certainly get behind taking him at second base tonight. I think the Texas bats they're super contrarian, super sneaky for a GPP tonight, given the park bump and the opposing pitcher. So yeah, I can definitely get behind him.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of with you. I think that Texas is a sneaky stack. And that's not to say that Kansas City isn't a good stack. I think there's just going to be a ton of runs.
A lot of runs there.
Yeah, a ton of runs in that game, which could benefit both ways, especially if this Coors game doesn't score as many runs as expected.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see more runs in the Texas game than you see in Colorado tonight.
Wow, I don't know if I can go there with that one, but it's going to be interesting to see. I think all 4 of those games in those hitters' parks are games you want to at least start where you're targeting players. But with that, let's go ahead and move on to third base. Who are we liking at the hot corner tonight?
Third base a little clearer than second base is. You can lump in the amazing stats of Josh Donaldson into one fell swoop against left-handed pitching and just drop him into your lineup. Same thing. I mean, we went through this analysis last night. You look at his WOBA, his walk rate, his power numbers against left-handed pitching. They're all elite figures. And given the struggles of C.J. Wilson this year, definitely think that Donaldson will be in store for a solid night. You do make a good point, though. With a lot, it doesn't apply to Donaldson, but with the other Oakland bats, you could be seeing a lot of guys getting pinch hit for. With Norris in the lineup, with Fryman in the lineup, Johnny Gomes in the lineup, Gentry in the lineup tonight. They've got a lot of left-handed bats on their bench to use if and when the Angels bring a right-handed reliever in there. So that is a word of caution if you're going to stack Oakland. Which Donaldson, they'll leave him in there even if the Angels bring a righty in. He just doesn't hit righties as well. So I like Donaldson tonight. Certainly think he's a solid option. If you choose to not follow the herd there, obviously you've got Arenado and Coors Field, but I don't like his price tag at all on DraftKings. I think 5K is a bit steep. So I probably won't be taking him there. I think he's a better buy on FanDuel with his price tag. Donaldson will probably be far and away the highest owned guy at third base. If you want to go cheap at the position, you can just get your guaranteed home run from Zach Walters. Pretty much all he does every night is go 1 for 4 with a solo homer, and as long as they're going to keep him priced at $2,300, I guess I'll take that. He's got 5 home runs now in, I believe, 8 games, maybe 9 games for the Indians. I'm sure he'll be a popular punt play again tonight with the cheap price. Really, I mean, I think it's you go high or you go cheap at third base, or we mentioned Neil Walker at second. You've got a couple multi-position guys that we've already talked about that you could throw in at third base as well if you want to do that. And if you want to pick on Edinson Volquez, I don't mind Aramis Ramirez either, but it can be a lot of Donaldson for me.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you. Not as much as in the past where it was basically take Donaldson and run, worry about it elsewhere. But especially at his price, I think that he still will be the highest owned guy. But there are some other options. You could go a number of different ways at third base tonight. I completely agree with you. Over on our sponsor at DraftKings, Miguel Cabrera is listed over there at third base. Very steep, obviously. But an intriguing play for me is going to be Arenado. I think a lot of people automatically just kind of write him off because it's a righty versus righty, but he's hit righties. He's held his own against them this year. Batting cleanup, and Tom Kohler has reverse splits. So just on a guy in general, I think can really kind of keep up those splits. His peripheral stats suggest they kind of are in agreement with his horrible road numbers. I think that he has blow-up written all over his forehead. And at 5K, I think, for the savings you get from Donaldson, I don't think a lot of people are going to go that route tonight. So I do like Arenado big time for your GPPs, but if you're playing cash games in your 50-50s and your double-ups, I think you just go ahead and employ that Donaldson or bust strategy because he's going to be highly owned. And at a position that's very volatile, he could burn you if you don't have him on your roster. Going down in terms of value, I was going to get to Walters when we get to shortstop, but you did mention him, shortstop and third base eligible. All this guy's been doing is hitting home runs, and he's been probably the best punt for about a week straight since Mike Trout was that cheap. I think it was last year or 2 years ago. I am all over Walters if you need to absolutely punt. But another intriguing two, actually, GPP options for me. What are your thoughts? I know you're not a particularly big fan of this guy. Pedro Alvarez or Mike Moustakas. What are your thoughts on those two tonight?
I think they could both be worthwhile GPP plays. I don't know. Alvarez has been so bad this year, and I know I probably underrate him, but his price tag, you certainly can argue with $2,900. If you're looking for a cheap home run and you don't want to get the guaranteed home run that you'll get from Walters, you can throw Alvarez in there. at 2,900, batting 6th tonight against Peralta. And again, Peralta has given up a lot of home runs, so I think if there ever was a night for the matchup to be a good one for Alvarez, probably is the night to take a shot at that. Moustakas, I don't know if tonight is the night, whereas last night Colby Lewis has those extremely poor numbers against left-handed bats. Tepesh has actually been relatively decent lately. I'd probably take Alvarez before I took Moustakas tonight. But I'd see the GPP merit in both those guys.
Yeah, they're essentially the same player. Moustakas having a little bit of a better season. Obviously, Alvarez, got booted from his own position because in addition to, his, poor hitting, his defense has been even worse. But, these are guys that have that raw power that can hit you 2 home runs in a game, and they come at a very cheap price. So I think it might be worth the risk tonight in your GPPs. I wouldn't sniff these guys in your cash games. Again, for me, it's Donaldson or bust in your cash games. But I think that third base, this could be the position where some of these tournaments are won and lost tonight because of just the variety of different ways that you can go. To be honest, I think I'm gonna go on the other side of that argument. I think I'm gonna go with Moustakas because I think that Alvarez, he's a candidate to get pinch hit for, especially with Gabby Sanchez and Ike Davis on the bench. I know that there's not too many lefties in that Brewers bullpen, but the first side of him, similar to some of these Oakland batters, I think he might be out of that game, unless, of course, it's out of hand or he's 3 for 3 or something. But I'm going to lean Moustakas. But again, both guys in terrific hitting environments with decent matchups at a very relatively cheap price. I think that those are excellent punts. All right, let's move on to shortstop. Who do we like?
The good chances I get a night with a chance to redeem myself and pronouncing Arispel Arrubarena. Just did that better than I did the other night. An interesting thing about DeGrom now is if you pull up that Dodgers lineup, it looks absolutely awful. No Puig in there tonight. And other than the top 4, I mean, it's Ethier hitting 5th, who's been terrible. Rubarena hitting 6th, Butera hitting 7th, so no AJLs tonight either. Miguel Rojas is playing 3rd and batting 8th. And even, the top 2 guys, Gordon and Crawford, it's not like they're going to take you deep. So really makes it interesting. I wish DeGrom was cheaper. But anyway, if you're punting at shortstop, there you go. You've got Rubarena for the Dodgers is 1,800. He's batting 6th tonight. Again, I've already mentioned Walters at third base. You're guaranteed home run from him. So you got 2 guys. They're 2,300 or less. There's your punts at shortstop if you want to just start on the low end. If you want to spend a little bit, shortstop eligible on DraftKings. Mentioned Urban Santana's struggles against left-handed bats. And the fact that you can run on the Braves, especially with Gaddis behind the plate. I didn't check that lineup, though. I think he's in there. Is he catching tonight? I guess, yeah, he is. So you got a good matchup for a potential stolen base against a pitcher that struggles against left-handers if you want to throw Billy Hamilton out there tonight. I think he's probably a nice option, for 4,300. That price is actually a little bit down. I'll make my first homer pick of the night. I do like Peralta. You mentioned the reverse splits for Buchanan. I think that Johnny Peralta gives you probably the most home run upside of anyone other than Walters at shortstop tonight. So Peralta at 4K, certainly you can take that route if you believe in Buchanan's reverse splits. And then, Jimmy Rollins still has some pop. Again, can hit from the left side against Shelby Miller. Don't mind him at 3,900. It's just there's not a lot to love at shortstop. This is probably where I would plug in Scooter Gennett on DraftKings, where you get the shortstop eligibility with him having a good matchup and batting 5th tonight.
Yeah, I'm pretty much with you. It's shortstop. I mentioned in my article. Now that Tulo and Hanley Ramirez are on the DL, it just sucks. Picking these guys from a fantasy perspective. Doesn't suck to get that cheap Zach Walters dong that seemingly comes every night. But again, it's hard to trust some of these guys, and it is hard to pay up for. Fortunately, on our sponsor DraftKings, Billy Hamilton, like you mentioned, is shortstop eligible. Telling you right now, that's the route I'm going tonight. I liked him as an outfielder. The price, it's steep, but even more so on DraftKings, unless he's caught stealing, those stolen bases really add up. I mean, you look at him last night, and by the amount of points he got 25 DraftKings points. That's isn't that around a double dong night?
Yeah, it
If I'm
really
not
is.
mistaken. Yeah, so I mean, obviously, again, he does get negative if he's caught stealing, but those chances aren't that likely, especially with Gaddis and Irvin Santana, that duo as battery mates. So um, I love Billy Hamilton. That's the route I'm going. Peralta, I like him a little bit more on FanDuel, where his price is a little bit down, but I don't hate the pick, and he's especially on DraftKings where he can't burn you. This is a guy that has a great slugging percentage, not necessarily hitting for average or drawing walks, but when he's getting his hits, he's making them count. And in that ballpark, especially against David Buchanan, I do like Peralta tonight, but just not as much as I like him over on FanDuel. Um, and then there's not really anyone else that I like, believe it or not, aside from our top punt, Zach Walters. I'm not gonna mess around with a Rubarena today, or even a Miguel Rojas. And you're absolutely right. I don't know, is Don Mattingly trying to lose the game tonight? Um, because that Dodgers lineup, it's
It's pretty
absolutely
bad.
it's horrendous, and he might be just trying to troll you guys, trying to get you to pay up for Cole or
DeGrom.
DeGrom, but at the same time, at that price, I still think he's going to be on a strict pitch count. So take that for what you will. All right, let's move on to outfield really quickly here. We got about 6 minutes. Who don't we like in outfield tonight?
Well, it was the game everyone predicted from Giancarlo Stanton last night against a lefty, and by the end of the game, they just didn't want to give him anything to hit. I think tonight at 5,700, tonight's the night that you can play the fade a little bit more safely than last night. I mentioned that Lyles is a ground ball pitcher. 5,700, that's just a steep price tag to command, and I think he'll be highly owned. Given his percentage ownership last night, upwards of 40% in some GPPs, and the fact that he did not get out a single time last night, I don't believe, you're going to see people go back to the well with Giancarlo Stanton. I think I'm going to play the fade tonight. Doesn't necessarily mean it's right. Certainly, he's a guy with mammoth power hitting in Coors Field. So if you want to roster Giancarlo Stanton, feel free to do that. He's going to be most people's number one. If you want some exposure to that game, I think I'd actually prefer a guy like Dickerson for the Rockies as the top outfielder. He's about $1,000 cheaper. Maybe even Ozuna for the Marlins, the way he's been hitting. He hit a home run last night. Those are two guys that I think would be a little bit lower cost to still get you some exposure to the Coors game. I mentioned this is more of a gut than anything, but he's had a terrible season. We've talked about the struggles of Guthrie against left-handed bats. I actually hope that Shin-Soo Choo has a good game tonight. The matchup sets up perfectly for him at the top of the Texas order. Good ballpark against a really bad pitcher against left-handed bats. So Choo's price way down on every side. I mean, he is super cheap. So I love him tonight at like a 3K-ish price on DraftKings. I forget what exactly was 38 maybe. I know he's in the threes. So I like him at that price if you want kind of a mid-range guy that's been struggling but still has some upside. Let's see. If I'm scrolling down, I think the 4K to 4,700 range, there's not a ton to love in there. I mean, we talked about Buchanan's reverse splits, so you could go for Matt Holliday. We talked about Billy Hamilton at shortstop. Don't love a whole lot in the mid-range, but some cheaper options in the outfield as well. If you want to take another Texas left-handed bat, Jim Adducci is minimum price. Again, not a glamorous option. You've got Johnny Gomes in there against a left-hander today, so I think he could be serviceable as well. And then you could roll out somebody. Say I talked about a couple of Padres. You could roll out somebody from the Padres outfield at a cheap price. Don't like Raimir Liriano's price tag on DraftKings right now. He's up to 3,800 there, but I think he's still a little bit cheaper over on FanDuel. if you want to take some exposure to the bats against Nuno, he's batting fifth tonight behind Rivera. So you've got some interesting value options. You know, the 3, 4, 5 in that Padres order, they're all cheap. Medica, Rivera, and Liriano. Interesting little mini stack, especially over on FanDuel, where all three of them are cheap, as opposed to Liriano being a little more expensive on DraftKings. Not something that I'm doing, but I think there's a little bit of merit to that.
Yep. Don't ever be afraid to take a couple of Padres bats. Never the most ideal or optimal strategy to stack them all up. But there are a few guys again that can hit left-handed pitching, and in that ballpark especially, they're going to fly under the radar. Going to my top plays, you know what? I'm actually with you. Pretty much across the board, across the industry, just not really feeling Stanton this tonight. Jordan Lyles has been serviceable and effective versus right-handed pitching. I think at the very least, Stanton might just get pitched around tonight and let some of the other guys behind him try and do some of that damage. But for me, I do think over on DraftKings, because I'm not on Lester, that Trout, you gotta consider him. I think it's the stat I saw last night after he hit that first inning bomb. He's homered in like 6 straight games in Oakland, and that's not an easy place. That's not an easy park to do that. Obviously a tougher matchup with Lester, but Trout, he's the best player in the world, and his price is he's not the most expensive player on the board. No one's going to be on him, especially on DraftKings. That's why I'm going to be lighting up some Trout in some of these GPPs because while he has struggled here and there, he's still the best player in the planet, and he's got tremendous upside every time he steps on the field. So I'm liking Trout as my top option. Christian Yelich. This one's going to be a tough one for me because I'm all over this kid. I love what he brings to the table. He's got so much upside as a young hitter. But at 5,100, I guess I'll ask you: do you think? I know you're not really on this game at all, but Yelich at his price, what are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, it's tough at that price tag. I don't know. I don't know if I could pay 5,100 for him. I mean, it's obviously got some Coors factor built in there. I think it'd be contrarian enough. I mean, he's got some pop for a leadoff man, and he can rack up doubles and triples, especially in Coors with those big alleys. You don't have to necessarily be a home run guy to get some extra base hits. So I don't know as if the price tag would scare me away, especially with pitching not being so expensive tonight. I mean, you think you can work him in. It's just hard with him. At that point, you're saying, well, he's only $600 or $700 less than Stanton. I don't know. I think it's an interesting, somewhat contrarian play tonight, though. Similar to what you mentioned before with Arenado, if you want the lesser-owned Coors bats, I mean, everyone's going to be on Stanton again. Everyone's going to be on Morneau at that price. A lot of people are going to be on Dickerson. Guys like Arenado and Yelich make interesting plays.
Yeah, I like Yelich, but I think I'm going to have to agree with you. At that price, I just, it's, obviously there's not a set number or anything that he needs to hit to pay off that price, but, the rest of your lineup's going to suffer, especially if, you want some of these other high-priced guys. So, obviously tremendous cash game plays, coming in hitting 500 over the last 10 games, has speed, has power, can steal a base, but I think that Dickerson has slightly higher upside, and at a cheaper price. I think after Trout, that's where I'm going to be going tonight. I think a lot of people are going to be more on Miami bats than Colorado, perhaps for good reason. But again, similar to your Texas theory and Kansas City, I just think there's going to be a ton of runs from both these teams, and you got to go with the options that have been getting it done more consistently than not. So I do like Dickerson. Going down, don't necessarily have to have these Kansas City bats, especially at their price. Willingham, really boomer bust, and Gordon, man, he threw up a big stinker for me yesterday. So not necessarily on those guys, but if you are going down, don't sleep on Torrey Hunter batting second, moderate price. And then if you need to punt, you mentioned it with some of the Texas bats. Don't sleep on Brandon Barnes either, batting second. Again, Tepish with those reverse splits. He comes in with a nice price tag in addition to Gomes and Aducci. So that's pretty much what I got. And looks like we're 2 minutes over time. So we'll go ahead and wrap things up here. Again, apologize for the technical difficulties at the start of the show. I'm not the man to I probably shouldn't have been setting it up in the first place, but we'll obviously get that dialed in and squared away for the in the future moving forward. Other than that, good luck tonight, grinders. And anything you want to sign off with, STL?
Yeah, good luck. As I see now, still no lineup from the Marlins, so just be careful, especially if you're on FanDuel where it's going to lock in a half an hour. DraftKings, obviously, you have a little bit more flexibility there, but still no Marlins lineup. Has to be something injury-related at this point for someone to, they're waiting to see how it goes in batting practice or whatnot. So who knows who that could be? It could be Yelich, it could be Stanton. We haven't heard anything at this point. So just be careful if you're on those Marlins to see if that lineup comes out before lock. Good luck tonight, everybody, and we'll be back at you tomorrow.